Hi, welcome to the New Voting Project. My name is Kanal, your host, and today we have a very special guest who we've been wanting on the show for some time, Clarissa Unger, who is the co-founder and executive director of Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. Prior to founding SLSV Coalition, you served as the development coordinator for the Robert J. Dole Institute of Politics at the University of Kansas, where you help promote civic engagement, opportunities on campus, which I'm sure we're going to be talking about that today. You also have a master's in public administration and a BA in political science and international studies from the University of Kansas, and a master's in comparative European politics from Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. It's really funny. I'm from Dublin, California, so people get that mixed up all the time.
Oh, I'm sure. Very different environment there.
Exactly, I imagine. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're very busy helping students learn to vote. So thank you. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited.
Yes, let's do it. Let's get into these questions, shall we? For our first question, just for the viewers, talk a little bit about your background, how you got into the civic engagement and political space, and touch on how college prepared you. It seemed like college was a big influencing factor in preparing you for this role. So just how you got here.
Yeah, college really was. So as you sort of alluded to, I'm originally from Kansas. I grew up in a really small town in Northwest Kansas, and I attended the University of Kansas for my undergrad. At the time, I thought I wanted to go to law school, and I thought if you go to law school, you study political science. I really, to be honest, didn't know a whole lot about civic engagement, political science, voting before that. I did at the time get involved at the Robert J. Dole Institute of Politics, which you mentioned, which is a bipartisan institute at the University of Kansas that helps to engage students in civic engagement. And so while through my involvement there, I got involved with the presidential campaign. And really, at the time, I didn't know what I was doing, but I had a lot of great mentors who helped sort of guide me through that. And I found that this was something that I really loved doing. And so I have really done something related to youth voter engagement ever since. And part of that was coming back to the Dole Institute of Politics to actually work there after I had, left my undergrad and gone to DC and then went back to Kansas. And while I was there, we were really had the responsibility of helping to make sure that students across the university were getting registered and getting out to vote and understanding the importance of voter engagement. And a lot of our work there really didn't go beyond sort of tabling on campus, as I'm sure many folks are aware of. But there just seemed to be so much more that the university could be doing in helping students to get engaged with our democratic processes. And so that's kind of how I got initially started and some of the backstory to how we sort of got to the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive. And, I am on the political science trek as we speak. So if I don't attend law school, I'll be calling you. Say,
Well, there's lots of different things that you can do from studying political science. So I'm sure you'll be just fine.
I believe it. No, that's great. I myself have dabbled in campaigning and working on presidential campaigns, so I understand how that could be very invigorating and inspire, really. But no, let's talk about your role at SLSV, this entire coalition that you are the executive director. I mean, do I even have to continue? Like, what is it that the organization strives to accomplish? What are the goals? What is the purpose, and how is it going so far? Almost pre-midterm elections.
Yeah, great. Well, if it's okay, I might step back and talk a little bit about why we started the coalition to begin with, just to share a little context there. Yeah. So I mentioned I was working at the Dole Institute at the University of Kansas. And while we were there, we knew that there's this provision in the Federal Higher Education Act that requires colleges and universities to provide voter registration for their students. But like I said, I didn't think we were doing it to the best of the university's ability. So after leaving the Dole Institute of Politics, I started working for an organization called Young Invincibles. And while there, some of the folks there were looking into this provision in the Higher Education Act and starting to think about, well, this is federal law. Campuses are supposed to be complying with this. We know that many of them aren't, and there's also not any real enforcement from the Department of Education. So what are some things that we could do in order to help colleges actually comply with this, but just go above and beyond just registering students to vote? And so back in late 2015, early 2016, a number of different organizations in the nonpartisan youth voting space came together, and we formed the SLSV Coalition. So since our founding, which we officially launched in February of 2016, our mission has really been to help support local campus leaders all across the country in engaging their students in the voting process. And we know that there's no one specific set of tactics or strategies that will work on every campus and for every type of student. And so we really work through the coalition and with all of our coalition partners. There's over 400 SLSV coalition partners across the country to help make sure that those folks on campus who are leading those efforts and who are working in coalitions on their campus have all the different types of resources that they will need to be successful in their own context.
Yeah.
So that's a little background.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I mean, 400 separate organizations coming together, that's a big coalition. You got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a great big family for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I'm about to embark in college, so, if there's ever any lacking of resources for student voting, I'm probably going to.
You know where to come. We're here for you.
Exactly. So yes, that's great, and I'm sure you have to oversee a lot of different projects, but I want to talk about a couple in specific. There's a couple ongoing projects. Ask Every Student, and I see this collaboration. I read a couple articles about how college campuses are working with local elections officials. That's something I've been hearing a lot more about as we approach, campaign season. So my question is, throughout all the work that you've done these past 6 years, I mean, what have you learned from these projects, and what are you applying to these ongoing projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've learned a lot. So where to begin? Well, I'll start with Ask Every Student. So this is a program that we started in 2020 along with some of our steering committee partners who I'll just mention because they're awesome and wonderful. The All In Campus Democracy Challenge, the Fair Election Center's Campus Vote Project, and NASPA, which is the largest student affairs organization in the world. So we work together with those steering committee members to launch this program called Ask Every Student, where we provide funding and resources and help develop with campuses different resources to integrate a 3 to 5 minute voter registration and voter engagement conversation into systems and processes that already exist on campuses. So initially it was conceived of integrating this 3 to 5 minute conversation, because keeping in mind, of course, as you know, like a lot of students are new to the voting process, they might be registering for the first time and have a lot of questions. So we think that conversation is really important to make sure that they're getting all the questions that they have answered. So initially it was conceived of integrating that into like campus orientation programs. But then as we were launching in 2020 and the pandemic hit and a lot of campuses had to switch things to go online, we started exploring even more different types of systems and processes that every student on campus goes through to integrate that into. So in 2020, we worked with 176 campuses through that program, and more have been continuing since then. So this year we'll be working specifically with 20 different campuses to help co-design different strategies and resources related to this, and hundreds more campuses as we help them sort of integrate that into their different systems and processes. That's one program we're really proud of.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot from it. We've iterated the program a lot and tried to make it as accessible as possible for campuses.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think what I found, the most baffling was that at any institution, whether highly prestigious or not, you would see this lack of resources. So my kind of take is that the fact that there's an entire coalition, dedicated to ensuring students are learning how to vote, because most students I hang around with, they understand the power of voting. They've been told, their teachers constantly remind them. But if I ask a student, how do you vote? Like, what is the actual logistical process of voting? I mean, it's crazy. If I'm from a different state, how do I register? Do I need to get a letter from my dean so that I can go vote? Like, it's so incredibly um, complicated, I think is the right word in some cases. But I'm very glad that students have resources and that these projects are making an impact across the country at a variety of different campuses.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is complicated, but it's not really that complicated, right? If you just break down the steps, but it can be hard to know even where to go to figure that out. So there's really no reason why institutions that students or young people interact with every day, like their schools, their campuses, can't be that resource. And as I mentioned earlier, by federal law, they are supposed to be. So
That's good to know. I'm going to use that. You are required to help me.
yes.
Yeah. So I guess my next kind of set of questions is, of course, voting is important, but I guess from your perspective, you've been running an organization that desires to impact and inspire a new generation. Why is student voting and subsequent to that civic engagement, critical issues we should be focusing on? Why should people care about them at all? As we go in and we're talking about Gen Z, Gen X, again, I didn't create these acronyms, I just use them. But why are these things important to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, so many reasons. I know I don't have to tell you this, right? Like, voting is one very powerful way that we can all make our voices heard. And because these generations, as you've mentioned, are the youngest ones now, are the most diverse in our country's history, we need to make sure that those voices are represented. And the younger and earlier that people start getting involved in whether it's voting or other forms of civic engagement, we know the more likely they will be to be involved later on. So that's the main reason that we are so focused on, especially students and young people, and making sure that they have the resources, because like you mentioned before, it's not just intuitive to know what to do. And so we need to put in some added effort to make sure that we are fully welcoming young people into our democratic process so that they can make their voices heard and have an impact on the issues and policies that affect their lives now, but will continue to affect their lives many years in the future.
Yeah, of course. And like I say many times in the show, something I've learned is that voting is not the silver bullet. It's kind of like the first step.
Totally.
It's like I would mandate it, but again, I don't want to cause any controversy. But it's the first step in a democratic process that everybody should be participating in. And the next step is what you want to do afterwards, and that's up to you. But I think everybody should have the time, the resources, the convenience to get out there and cast their vote, cast their opinion, because those policies and those elected officials that you're voting for, or new candidates, are making decisions that are going to impact your day to day, whether it be your local mayor's election or your federal, presidential election. These elections matter. And I'm very happy to say that SLSB is helping ensure that happens. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I just want to close by asking, what is your advice? What do you recommend to these generations, to folks that feel alienated, to folks that feel exhausted, to folks that want to get involved? How can we make an impact on voting and elections, or wanting to stay engaged? Where are the outlets that we can go and serve in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, I think there's opportunities in every community to get involved. And if you don't know where to start, you can come to the SLSV Coalition. You can check out our partner directory and see what's available in your area to get involved. But you don't have to. Like, there's so many ways to just get involved with your own local community. And I think just being curious and starting to ask questions. If I go back to my own experience, right, I mentioned I had no idea what I was doing when I initially got involved, and that's okay. And I think a lot of times some of us let that hold us back a bit. But look where I've been able to come from where I started. When I went to college and I didn't know anything, and now I'm running this national coalition, as you mentioned, with over 400 nonprofits. And so, just get started. Like that's all you got to do. And everything is important, whether it is just getting involved in a local race or getting involved in a presidential election. But we need you. We need young people. We need your energy. We need your creativity. We need your voice.
You need me in
Um,
Pacific, yes.
yeah.
No, no, I completely understand. And then that's actually really great advice. One advice I haven't heard on the channel yet, so thank you for that. Um, and I guess this is the part of the podcast where you're allowed to promote yourself. Feel free to shout out your social medias and website. I'm going to link it all in the description. And if anybody wants to get involved again, please go visit and get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll gladly shout out our website is slsvcoalition.org. Follow us on social media at SLSV Coalition, um, and follow Kunal as well.
Oh,
Because you are doing incredible work, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this
I
show.
appreciate it. I wasn't expecting that, but yes, you do. And SLSV can follow me too.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to do this. I do appreciate it a lot. And thank Danny. I'm going to shout him out in the interview. But
He's our great communications director.
exactly.
He's awesome, as is the rest of our team.
Yes, yes. But no, the insight was great. The perspective is amazing. I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing. As somebody who's about to go to college, I understand that I want those resources available to me. So I definitely understand the significance. And I think people will find it invaluable. So please, if you're a college student looking to get involved, hit up SLSV and just do it and get started.
Great. Well, and Kunal, thank you again for having me as well, and thank you for all you're doing. Really appreciate it, and it's just wonderful to be a part of.
Thank you, thank you. And I wish you the best of luck with all your ongoing projects. Please feel free to come back if you ever decide to do anything else, or if you're embarking on a new journey and need some help, please feel free. The door's always open.
Oh, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Clarissa. Take care.
Bye.